All right, race fans, Brian Aho here and the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how's it going?
Going all right. It's Tuesday night when we're recording this. I was just watching It's Bristol, baby. And once again, there's some junk being made.
There was, and we'll get more into Bristol in a little bit. I thought spring was on its way up here in northern Minnesota, up in at my parents' place here. We got like 5 inches of snow today. It was insane. It's like this is, I think that's got to come to an end, right? You got like 3 fake springs, and then you actually have spring. So I'm not sure if we're now on number 1, number 2. I'm not sure where we're at, but hopefully that ends pretty soon. But episode number 121, of course, Bert, brought to you by Dirt Track Supply over in Watertown, South Dakota. Of course, Ron Anderson, Trevor Anderson, they do a lot for racing. We talked a little bit about Ron last week, legendary racer over in South Dakota. Trevor, he's getting his name out there as well, winning some races. On his way down to Bristol, he's going to run next week down there in Bristol with the Open Modifieds. But this is the time of year, racing is right around the corner in the Northland. Get a hold of them, guys. Get the parts you need. Tires will be coming in the next couple of weeks here. Make sure to get on a list and get those, because who knows how many are going to be out there. And if you need parts, that's your go-to Dirt Track Supply, Watertown, South Dakota. But let's start with this. Let's talk about racing. I was talking with some buddies here this week about just the insane costs of racing. You know, people are like, you know, why on earth is there 7 or 8 WISSOTA modifieds at a track? I went through the deal last year, just on modifieds alone, Bert. I went through it, and I kind of went through all the tracks throughout WISSOTA country, and for the majority of them, they averaged less than 10 cars a night. Well, when it's $70,000 for a race car, what the hell do they expect, right? So do you have any thoughts on this? Because I have a thought, right? And my thought is this. I'm going to touch on what we're going to talk about. My number one way to bring down the cost of these insanely overpriced race cars. Bert, anything come to mind for you? What needs to be done, in your opinion, to bring the cost of these cars down?
I mean, I don't know. You probably have a better idea. I mean, you've actually raced, so I mean, you have an idea of what different components do on a race car. I mean, I know, I mean, everybody thinks that motors are, you know, what the most expensive thing, but these days, I mean, shock packages are thousands and thousands of dollars. And you know, when I talk to drivers and stuff, that's one of the things that they mention as why the cost is so high. Technology,
right? So the number one way, write this down. If you're paying attention, if you're a track promoter, I want you to take notes on this segment, okay? You need to understand this, okay? It's on you. It's not on the drivers. It's not on everybody else. It's on you. This is up to you. Water the frickin' racetrack. Period. Water the goddamn track. You kidding me? Like, all this bone dry nonsense, top to bottom, brings out all the technology, right? I talked to several engine builders, and I mentioned a couple shows, you know, hey, maybe they got to go the crate direction, right? Maybe they got to do that. Well, I don't really want crates. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I don't want freaking pickup truck motors and race cars. Nothing against crates, but there's something special about having the community of engine builders involved with racing. They've helped a lot of drivers. That's their bread and butter. We need that. And if you think about it, right, the cost of engines today, like in a WISSOTA modified, hasn't really gone up. When I started racing modifieds back in, it would have been 2008, and it's 2022 now. Bert, that's 14, 15 years, right? It's the same price. It's literally within a grand. I could get a very, very competitive WISSOTA modified engine for $15,000. You can still do the same thing. In fact, you probably can get a concept a little cheaper than that. The cost of the engines ain't gone up. There ain't much change there. But like you said, the shock prices out there, we used to run on Bilstein shocks. Everybody ran either Bilsteins or AFCOs, and we had, I don't know, maybe $100, $125 into a shock, right? There's people out there got $300-400 into each corner, right? It's ridiculous. It's double adjustable, high end, base valve stuff. stupid, right? And the fact is, rolling chassis, this is nothing against chassis builders. I get it. It is what it is, right? Don't hate the player, hate the game. If they can make money, we're in the United States, it's capitalism. It is the way it is. But the cost of a rolling chassis is over double of what it was 15 years ago. But the cost of the engine stays the same. Now, here's the kicker. I'm not saying a muddy track. Nobody wants 2-foot holes, cowboy up, destroying race cars. We don't want that, right? We don't want that. There's some uneducated race fans that are like, oh, that's cool. It's not cool. It's not. Okay, trust me, I had a car. It's not cool. But if you have some grip on the track, right? A little food up top, a little cushion, a little food down on the bottom, some patchy stuff through the middle, where there's some grip on the racetrack, I would argue you can take a 15-year-old modified and win against these $35,000, $40,000 rollers that are out there today. In fact, I would pay to see some of these cars on the cowboy up stuff that we used to run on 20 years ago. I don't want to see those tracks. I don't. But number one, they wouldn't finish a race. And number two, they'd all be rocked over. Half of them would roll over in the heat race, right? Now, I get it. That's because of the tracks. But the problem is, Bert, most of these track promoters are either former racers, high-end racers, people that won a lot, or people that are, they got the top drivers in their ear, and they all say the same thing. We don't want this hammer down stuff. We don't want sticky. We want dry slick. Do you know why that is, Bert? It creates separation, right? Because there's only the top elite drivers can get their car to go on the super slick stuff. And you get on a track that has a little stickiness to it. There's drivers out there that can go pretty good on that are horrible on the dry slick, right? So of course the people that are spending the most money, they want it slick. Oh, we ain't coming back. It's too sticky. I've seen people, Bert, oh, the track's muddy in the heat race. I'm not even going out there. Seriously? Like, who the hell would spend $15,000, $20,000 on a motor, whatever it is, to go half throttle? I get it, right? They say, oh, the cream rises to the top on the dry slick. No, the wallets rise to the top on the dry slick. The person with the best tires, the best shock package, the best technology, all of that stuff comes into play. And again, I am not promoting rough mud hole racetracks. I'm not. I just want to have a little bit of grip. How many times, Bert? I'm asking you. You're a fan. You're a huge race fan. Would you rather watch a track that is bone dry top to bottom, not an ounce of traction on it, or a track that has a little cushion, some grip, some food, they're going faster, slide jobs, chucking the high side? What would you prefer?
I mean, I like a track with a little bit of a cushion, because that it allows the drivers to race the top side. But along with that, you have to the bottom side has to be working. So it's not just a one-lane track. Everybody's riding the cushion around the track. I mean, you need the bottom to have some grip, so cars can race, at least 2 lanes.
And let's be honest, that's like the perfect racetrack, right? When you have a little cushion, some food on the bottom, some tack strips through the middle, you can run 3 lanes, diamonding. That's like a 10. That doesn't. I promise you, it's not that easy to create every night. It's not, right? But we've been to tracks where it's bone dry in like heat 3, right? And it's like, they pay some of these track prep crews, they get paid $500, $600, $700 to prepare the track all week long. And then you get there in race 2 and it's bone dry top to bottom. It's like, the hell did they do? Like, why are you paying them? How many times have you heard one of your dirt fan friends say, dirt racing is so much better than asphalt racing? It ain't even close, right? But then you have them same drivers saying, yeah, but I want it black. So you want to race on asphalt, right? So they want the asphalt type track, but it's like it don't even make sense. So in my opinion, if you would just water the track, and quite frankly, I know in the Wissota country, Bert, they don't get points in heat races. You don't get paid in heat races. I think Alex may be paid for heat wins, but you don't get paid, and there's no points. And let's be honest, most tracks only have 2 heats now. So, I mean, all you need to do is get the top 4. So it ain't a big deal. I mean, it's not a huge deal. Get the track a little greasier to start the night. We don't want a big curb on top. You might have to grade that off. Get it a little greasier to start the night. So that way, come feature time, you still have moisture on the track. I promise it's going to be better for racing. And I truly, honestly believe that it takes all that technology out. And I was a student of the game when I raced. And, you know, I really, really spent a lot of time on the scales and I really did my homework. But the fact is, that ain't good for racing. It's just not. I mean, you have this touring car mentality on a weekly basis, and it just doesn't make sense. You can't have good weekly programs and you have 2 $60,000 race cars racing against a whole bunch of $20,000 cars. It don't even make sense. So water the track. It's better for the fans. It's better for the racing. It's better for everybody's pocketbook. Take some of the technology away in a lot of these classes, and I promise you that will help a ton. Plus, we're in a tire shortage, right? So, I mean, it's easier on tires if there's a little grip on the track too. So everything goes hand in hand, but that's my number one thoughts. Water the racetrack, and that is going to help the sport immensely. So, Bert, let's go to a blast from the past, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. Drivers, fans, car owners, sponsors, business owners, you name it. If you're paying for your own health care, chances are you're paying too much. Give me a call, text me, message me, whatever you got to do. I can get you a quick quote. Can't promise you nothing, but been able to cut people's premiums in half. A lot of cases, there's some families, Bert, saving people over $1,000 a month. It's absolutely insane. You can go to any doctor in the country. So give me a chance. I'll see if maybe we can help you keep some of that money in your pocket to spend on racing, which we like that a whole lot more than insurance. I promise you that. So episode 121, Bert, you said you do not have a 121. Is that true?
True.
I have a couple. So, and he actually had 21s too. So I'll tie this all together. But Bob Royney, he used to build super stocks for a long time and heavily involved. He owned late models. Don Oz drove for him. His son, Mark Royney, is now the owner, builds TRC race cars, modified super stocks, Midwest mods. I think they even got an IMCA stock car out there. You know, I think they're maybe dabbling with building a late model. Mark's built a ton of cars for a long time. And he actually had a 121 car. He drove his own. He was a lot better fabricator than a racer. Mark will be the first one to admit it. He was not the guy to get up on the wheel and get it done, but man, he is a MacGyver when it comes to fabricating. But he had multiple drivers in there. And one of them that comes to mind, buddy of mine, Clint Larson, him and his brother Chad, they actually pitted for me for a number of years. Man, I got a lot of stories. We could have a whole episode talking about Chad and Clint. They'd probably be a little disappointed, especially Clint. He was a little bit more of a wild card than Chad was. But I know Clint ran that car. And Lauren Inman sent me a picture of his car at the Silver 1000, so I posted that one up here. And then Kaylee Emerson drove the 121, and Jeff Provenzino, they went down to Florida, Bert, to Speed Weeks. I learned a lesson, okay? They said, hey, can we take your trailer down there? I said, yeah, what the hell, why not? Pack the bearings. You know, if you break something, fix it, okay? I didn't learn this for like couple years after, but they wadded some shit up down there. I don't exactly know what happened. I wasn't there. I haven't seen the tapes. Maybe they're around, but evidently he tore some shit up, and they went and got a stub. They went and got a whole other clip, and ended up borrowing a car from Kevin V. Brock. Well, needless to say, now I do not have a stacker, Bert. It was just a 28-foot enclosed trailer. Evidently, they strapped the car to the top of my trailer and hauled it home. Right? To the top of my trailer. I'm like, are you serious? So they're not built for that, right? And so that was the last time I let anybody borrow a trailer. I'm like, Jesus, man, are you kidding me? So if you're borrowing stuff out, always remember there's people like Provenzino, Royney, and Clint. Trust me, they're gonna do stupid shit. It's just who they are. I don't think it really hurt nothing, but it's like, good grief, they got it up on top there, strapped it down. I'm like, are you serious? So that's kind of a funny story there. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they even did down there, but Provenzino, Kaylee Emerson, Clint Larson, Mark Royney, they all ran in a 121 TRC modified. How about number 21? Who do you got for number 21?
Well, current late model driver, obviously Todd Frank. He's number 21. But I don't know. Well, actually, I think this driver might still race every now and then. But Ted Dolan from the Milwaukee area, he raced at Hills Corners all the time. But in the early 2000s, he started coming up to Shawano Speedway every weekend. And his kids, TJ Dolan, and I missed these when we were at 01 and 02, but TJ Dolan was 01, and then Ted's other son, Jake Dolan, was 02. And all three of them would come up to Shawano Speedway and race in the early 2000s. So there was, at one point, there was probably around 5 drivers from the Hills that normally raced Hills Corners. They started coming up to Shawano every week. And it was really fun watching late model racing at Shawano Speedway at that time, because you had the mixture of the local drivers plus the out of towners that were coming in. So Ted Dolan was number 21, and a driver from Northeast Wisconsin, started in IMCA modified division, moved up to the late model division. Luke Ruffers, he raced late models at Shawano, but he eventually moved down to NASCAR country and started working for Chip Ganassi.
Oh, interesting.
And so he was working for Chip Ganassi, and at first down there, he still raced late models, and he won some regional series down in that area, racing a late model. I interviewed him for Dirt Late Model magazine probably 10 to 15 years ago. You know, it's amazing how time flies. But he was number 21. And then going a little bit further back in time, Mike Pannier was number 21. He raced at Shawano Speedway, and he was the first ever hobby stock champion at Shawano Speedway. So that's the little bit of, that's my history lesson for this episode. Really? And then obviously on the national scene, we all know what 21, the most famous 21.
Gibby Steinhaus?
Yeah, that's it.
he was a late model guy in 21 also, but yeah, obviously Mr. Smooth, probably the GOAT. Some people will say Bloomquist, right? Some people will say Moyer, but it's hard to compare with Billy Moyer. I'm telling you what, 847 wins, I believe, is what he's at. But 6 World 100s, 5 Prairie Dirt Classics, 5 USA Nationals. I mean, he was iconic. I mean, he'd pull in, and I mean, it looked like, I mean, when he unloaded, when he pulled in, everybody's like, all right, who's going to get second? I mean, it was just the way it was. I mean, when he pulled in, I mean, he just had that following, and I don't think he's done. I think he sold everything. I don't think he's planning on racing at all this year, is he?
I haven't heard anything about him. I mean, I think if he races at all, it would be racing for somebody else. He'd just hop into a car. Right.
So another one I have here is, we talked about Royney. Of course, Bob Royney owned several race cars for years, but the late Dan McMahon, one of my favorite drivers growing up. Of course, his brother Tim McMahon, a former Wissota late model national champion. Danny was talented. He might have been better than Tim, and Tim was good, but Danny was a little younger. And I remember him racing in Bob Royney's. I ran against him, I believe, my first year in a super stock. He whooped our asses. He did. I mean, he was good. They had a car that kind of looked like the Billy Moyer car 21. He ran that super stock. Instead of TRC, it was triple R chassis for the 3 Royneys involved. And then he ran a late model for a number of years as well for Bob Royney in the 21 car. And a guy gone way too soon. Lost his life 20 years ago in a snowmobile accident, which was extremely tragic. I mean, legendary name up in the Twin Ports, up in northern Minnesota. So Dan McMahon, of course. And then also in the 21 car, kind of tied in with that group, he's been hanging around Royney forever, but Kaylee Emerson, he ran a 21E late model for a number of years, ran pretty well. I don't remember if he won any or not, but he was always kind of he ran good. He was steady. He was consistent. He actually started the Northern Renegades non-wing sprint car series based out of Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I'll be honest with you, I was bitter. I'm like, we don't need another freaking class, right? We just don't. But that class is really growing, and the car counts in that non-wing sprint car class seem to be about the highest car counts of all the classes at the Grand Rapids Speedway. So he's heavily involved, has one of his own. Another guy I have, this is for Jeff. Jeff, tip of the cap, UP, baby, Marinisco, Michigan, I believe, either that or Ironwood, one of the two, but he was from Michigan, Jerry Hartman, and just a short little guy. I think he may be 5 foot nothing. Hell of a wheel, man. 1994 Red Clay Classic winner in the Wissota Superstock at the ABC Raceway in Ashland, and he won the 1999 Labor Day Shootout in a modified at the Hibbing Raceway. Hasn't been racing for a number of years, but Jerry Hartman is a guy that he could flat out get it done. Now, if you're from our area, Bert, if you're from Minnesota in general, I'll give you a clue. He ran a late model, a modified, super stock, probably other stuff back in the day, had a winged modified as well. And it was number 21.
I don't know.
Blue car, Olson Brothers Liquor, the primary sponsor. Somebody's going to have to let me know, but I know that Big Joe Jensen, Joey Jensen's dad, was heavily involved. I think he was a pit guy, maybe part owner, but they had like a royal blue car for a number of years in the super and then in the mods and the non-wing mods.
I don't know.
We talked about him 4 episodes ago on episode number 17. 17 late model from Minnesota.
Eggersdorf?
Yeah, there you go. Rick Eggersdorf. So I remember him as a legendary 17, but prior to that, he ran number 21, Bert, for a long time. For a long time for the I call it the Olson Brothers Liquor team. I don't know who owned the car, but he was really good in the super. They had a super stock in the early 80s. They had 3 of them at one time. He drove one, Ron Jones drove one, and Bobby Houston drove one. And they were all blue 21s. Bobby Houston then changed his to 69. So Jones and Eggersdorf ran them. And then he was unbelievably fast, especially in that winged modified. But in 1993, this guy's got a pile of Labor Day Shootout wins. In 1993, he won both nights of the Labor Day Shootout in the modified, one night in the late, and I think he got second the other night in the late model. Rick Eggersdorf, probably one of the most dominant drivers through the 80s and early 90s in all of Minnesota and all of Wissota racing. Another one I got here, a guy that I raced against at the Wissota 100 from Rice Lake, guy that won a pile of races down in the Rice Lake area, Menominee, Don Drew. In 2004, he snuck by me to win the Wissota 100. I'm still bitter about that. Timmy Johnson stuffed me in the fence. Probably my fault because I left the door open on a restart. You don't do that when Tim Johnson's behind you. Drew got by me. He parked in Victory Lane and went on to win that one. He won a lot of races. Another guy I have, the late Al Kaminke, ran a super stock for a number of years up in Proctor, Superior, Hibbing. He had a Century 21 car. It was orange. He was number 4 for a number of years, and then he was 21. Really young. He lost his life at an early age too. I think it might have been cancer. Not too sure. And then the last one I have, Bert, is a 21A, Justin Aylward, who hasn't been involved with racing for a number of years either. Ran a street stock, then he ran a super stock. He had an affordable for a few years, and then they built their own car, the ARC chassis, they called it. Won a bunch of races with that and went on and had a family. And honestly, I don't think I've even seen him at the racetrack in probably 10 or 15 years. So Justin Aylward, the last one that I have. So pretty cool kind of looking back at some of that stuff. And, you know, let's jump onto the next. Go ahead.
I just thought of another one. I believe he was 21. Wasn't Mike Goodremote number 21?
He did. Goodremote was 12. And then he did run a 21 as well because
okay.
So the owner of that was Paul Gilbert.
Right.
And I think they had a 12 and a 21, and Scott Gilbert's, I believe, which is Paul's kid, ran the 12. and then the cars looked the same. His was 21.
Right.
He ran that in the late models, but he was number 12 before that because I feel like he's married to Paul Gilbert's daughter, I think is how it works. So I think that's how it all tied in. His super stocks were the red 12, looked exactly like Paul's did, except for he ran Mopars. And then in the 21, Mike Goodger won a ton of races. Dude, I thought I killed him one night. Like, his back's still screwed up from an accident we got in. Red Clay Classic 2008, my rookie year in a modified. And literally, all I had to do was finish. If I got like 10th or whatever, I won the Como Mod Series. And the reason was because Daryl Nelson popped a drive shaft, I believe, right away, took him out of contention. And I'm like, I just got to finish here. I got a flap right away, had to come from the back, got up into the pack. And I feel like Good Remote was maybe leading in the 89 car, the White City glass cars. I think he was either leading or battling for the lead. And he lost a drive shaft and he kind of rolled around the top down the front straightaway. And it was pretty dark there at the time. No race receivers. I was right behind Kelly Esty and Jamie Lodiger, and their cars were all hunkered over. And I was right against the wall in the middle of the straightaway. They turned left, and there he was sitting there. I hit him wide open, folded my frame horns underneath the car, busted the block on my engine, flattened out the motor mounts, destroyed it. He went from a dead stop to cartwheeling. I literally never let off the gas until I was all the way underneath him. Like, I got out of the car and I'm like, I think I killed him. Like, I hit him hard. And I know he still has back problems from that, but man, that was one of those deals. If you've been in that situation racing, you know what I'm talking about. A car ducks down and there's one sitting in front of you. It was an eerie feeling. And I have not liked the ABC Raceway ever since then because that was a tough night. So let's jump on to the next segment, National Recap, brought to you by Ag Solutions by Brad Parson. So farmers, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, a lot of years in business here. Let's face it, the economy's not good. We already know that. Fuel prices are not great. So I'm sure you're doing everything you can to increase your yields and to maximize your profitability, right? I talked to Brad, and he said in recent years, the yields with their products have been unbelievable. So give him a call. His number's here. If you don't have it, message me. I'll get it to you. But give him a call. I'm not saying go plant your whole field with this stuff, but give it a try, because if it can help you increase your profitability, that's what you're all looking for. So Brad Parson, thank you there. And let's jump on. There's a little buggy action. World of Outlaw Sprint Cars, Bert. Back in California, they had, scheduled was night 3 and 4 of a 6-night swing. One of those rained out. They got the race in Merced, California. And I watched the race, pretty good race. But what stuck out to me is Carson Macedo parking it in Victory Lane. 3 for 3 for the California drivers on the California swing. You mentioned that last week that G.O.A.T said we're 1 for 1. They're 3 for 3 right now. Can the California drivers sweep out in California this next couple of weeks? There's 2 more to make the swing final. Can they get it done?
Well, according to my picks, I have Brad Sweet winning 2 races, and he's a Cali guy. He's an outlaw guy, but he's a Cali guy also. Right.
And Macedo's the first, because Larson and G.O.A.T are non-regulars.
Right.
So, so that was interesting there. So this weekend, of course, they're going to Bakersfield and Paris. So that'll be the story. Can California continue to dominate? And maybe this is the new rivalry, right? In World of Outlaw sprint car action, it's always the Pennsylvania Posse versus the World of Outlaws. Now they're coming down to California, and California is like, what, right? And it's like, part of me, the political side is like, just let that part fall off into the ocean, but we ain't going to get into politics.
Well, they haven't raced in Cali for a couple of years, so they need to get victories while they can.
That is true. Yeah, they probably won't be allowing gas-operated generators in the not-so-distant future, so we won't get into all of that, though. But sprint car action, good as always. A couple races coming up this weekend. Lucas Oil race this weekend as well. Brownstown canceled, and they canceled like a day early. And if you remember, last year it was kind of the same show, and they ran it, and they had to cancel partway through the night after Squirrel got upside down because it was a complete disaster of a racetrack. So they didn't want to duplicate that, and they said, with all that rain, let's just ixnay this deal and not go through that again. So they went to Atomic, who was supposed to race Friday. Atomic ended up racing on Sunday in Chillicothe, Ohio. 31 cars. What stuck out to you over at Atomic?
Jimmy Owens is having an up and down year, and he was on the upswing on over the past weekend. It started on the front row, but I mean, he won. And Devin Moran continues to have a good season. He started on the front row also, but he fell back to like third or fourth, I believe, in the race, but he battled back to finish second. So he's still having a strong season.
It was late in the year last year, Bert. I don't remember exactly the date, but it was late in the year before Jimmy Owens got his first win. See, he won, and his first win was one where they split the field, right? And he won one of those deals. And so it was really late in the year before he got his first win. He already has two under his belt. So Jimmy Owens off to a better start. Like you said, it's been up and down, but he's parked at victory lane twice, which he had not done before the end of March of last year. I promise you that. So hats off to him. And, of course, Moran, bridesmaid again, right? Now, what stuck out to me is I watched this race. I was watching it on Mav TV Plus through the heat races, and I watched the modifieds, and they had their support classes, and they said at 8 o'clock, which I think was 7 Central, they're going to start the main events, right? So 20 minutes or so 25 minutes prior to the feature, they're like, well, we don't dare put another class on the track because we want to make sure we're starting our broadcast on time. So there was like 25 minutes of just downtime. They really didn't do much track prep. I don't know if they did any. I don't think they didn't water it or nothing. So I think they just left it, did a couple interviews and all that. And it was just kind of like weird, right? Just kind of downtime. Then they switched over. It was still on Mav Plus, but then it was live on Mav TV. Okay. And the feature started for the late models, and it was pretty uneventful. It was blacktop to bottom. It wasn't a horrible race, but it wasn't great. It was just pretty uneventful, maybe 1 or 2 restarts at the most. And I think it got done in like 25 minutes. Okay. Now, Mav TV had an hour blocked out for the Lucas Oil late models, right? But they won't show support classes. So literally the races get done, and like they are like dilly-dallying, dragging their feet to victory lane. Jimmy Owens is standing there going like, what am I supposed to do, right? It was painful. It was like an epic fail, right? Literally a half hour, the lights were dimmed down. They're like, and the fans get to go home early. They still had support classes. Like the Mav TV crew had no idea what the hell was going on. It was it was an epic fail. In a situation like that, wouldn't you think that they'd be better off saying, okay, let's get the interviews done, and hey, we've got some bonus coverage. We're going to put the modifieds out. You're going to get to watch their feature tonight as well. Why wouldn't they do that instead of just literally doing nothing for a half hour on live TV? What is your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know I don't know if it's a contract thing. I mean, maybe legally they can't show the support class. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out. But no, I agree with you.
Forrest Lucas, he owns it. He owns the series. There's no contract you're talking about.
Well, no, I'm not arguing. I'm just saying maybe that's one of the reasons. I don't know. But no, I agree with you. I mean, the worst thing you can have in live radio, live TV is dead air, downtime. This is one of they're going through the growing pains and trying to figure out how to do live racing events, dirt racing events. In past years, they would show the complete program, where now they're trying to time it right, where the feature is going to fall right at this time and they're going to fit it into this time slot. And that's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, can you imagine in the NFL, if you had to fit it into a particular time slot? It's like, oh, we got 4 minutes. Well, I mean, it's the Heidi game. I mean, that's why games do run long now, is right, because actually, they used to leave the games when the time slot was over, and they left the game, Oakland Raiders against somebody, to show the movie Heidi, and the fans went crazy. So ever since then, they just go over.
And the way I look at it is like, hey, here's the deal. I mean, it got done in 25 minutes, maybe a half hour. Just show the next race, right? Just show the next race. Put the next race out on there. It was so awkward. They had the 5 drivers down there, and you could tell it was uncomfortable for everybody. They're like, what are they doing, right? I mean, like, what is going on here? And hopefully they don't continue to do that, because if they do that, it's going to be a terrible deal. Like that, you can't have that. There was enough support classes where they could have. I think they had modifieds and like a 305 wing sprint car class there as well. Put one of them on the track, let them race the other race, and if it goes 2 minutes over, whatever, figure it out. I mean, but that was awful. That was an epic fail on MAV TV's part. Hopefully they can work through them problems. So, got a fan question of the week. We'll kind of get back to the late models. We'll stick with the late models, I guess. And from a friend of the show, he goes, let's keep this anonymous. I'm like, all right. And this guy, I will say, does a lot for the sport. He's in media as well, does a lot for racing, and just highly entertained. Some of the stuff he does, I wish I could say who it was, because some of the stuff he does is super, super good. But his question was this: what are your thoughts on the absurd amounts of series and sanctioning bodies and traveling series all competing against each other? And he was talking primarily about late models. He mentioned you got World of Outlaws, Lucas, XR, Mars, the Hell Tour, Lucas Oil MLRA, the Ironman series. There's a lot more than that, right? Southern All-Stars. There's a ton more. And then you got the Tri-State, you got the Dirt Kings, you got Minnesota, the Challenge Series, you got all this. We've talked about this, right? There's way too much. Can you imagine the 410 sprint cars? Now Tony Stewart started his deal, right? But can you imagine if there was like 8 or 10 410 sprint car series? I mean, there's not enough of them to go around. It would be awful, right?
That's part of the reason there aren't that many of those.
But really,
series.
There aren't that enough late models to really go around to make all of these great either, right? So the 410 sprint cars can't do it. And that's why the World of Outlaws, the sprint car series, in their contract, they put the handcuffs on their drivers.
Right.
Like they cannot be, if they're going to go race at a different track, they can't be used promoting that event unless it's a World of Outlaw event. There's some different things that they do. The late models don't have that. The late models are like, no, I'm going to go and race here for 50 grand. I'm going to go here for 25. I'll be back at your show next week. That's just how it works. Totally different deal. But what is your thoughts of this? I mean, first of all, do you think that a couple of these series are going to go away? Can you see that possibly happening? Should they go away? What's your thoughts?
Well, the ones that are going to struggle, I think the regional series, the ones that rely on regional drivers, I think they'll be okay. The regional series that are trying to be national series, those are the ones that are going to struggle and possibly go away. I mean, because they like to pull in national drivers, and that's just not going to happen this year, I don't think.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit here. But this has happened regionally as well, too, right? Okay, I remember back in the 80s when my dad was racing. And I remember there was a time where drivers had to have different tires, different shocks, different engines, different carburetors to go to the neighboring track. I mean, it was ridiculous, right? I mean, if you wanted to race, like a Hibbing car wanted to go to, say, Rice Lake, which it didn't happen often back in the day, it was a totally different rule set. I mean, it was not the same. Everything was different. You go to Thunder Bay, different rules. So all these places had different rules. And when WISSOTA initially came in the mid 80s, It was incredible. It was like the best thing ever for regional racing because they had like 50 some tracks that were all on the same set of rules. And drivers were like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Like we can go to all these tracks and not have to change our cars. Now, I'm not going to get into the argument today on what's better, WISSOTA or IMCA or USRA or whatever. Okay, I'm not going to do that. You know, even in the late models, you got WISSOTA, you got Dirt Kings, you got Tri-State, right? Modified, you got WISSOTA, IMCA, USRA. Heck, you got UMP, not necessarily right in our area, but not too far away. So you got all these sanctioning bodies. I'm not going to get into which one I think is better or worse. But what I'm going to say, and I want to know if you agree, is the best thing that could happen for racing is if there was one. I don't care who it is. One sanctioning body might say, we're the modified sanctioning body. The next sanctioning body could say, hey, we're going to take care of we take the fendered cars, you take the open wheel cars, right? You can do that, right? USRA, their pride and joy, let's be honest, is modifieds in the B mods, right? So USRA, you get the modifieds, okay? WISSOTA, you get the stock car or street stocks, intermarriage them somehow, super stocks and late mods. It's not complicated. I mean, you could definitely do that. Imagine a world where we went back to that many racetracks having the same set of rules. Can you imagine that?
Well, it's not going to happen. But yeah,
you got a poor attitude, mister.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great if everybody had the same rule book. I mean, that is why dirt late model racing car counts in eastern Wisconsin doesn't increase, is because IMCA has a stranglehold, and they have a whole slew of tracks that are IMCA sanctioned. So if you're racing a modified or stock car, you can race at like 6-7 different tracks within like, you know, a 2-hour drive. Where if you want to race a late model, there's only 2 tracks in eastern Wisconsin. Otherwise, you have to drive to the western part of the state or down into Illinois. And that's why a lot of drivers who race modifieds in eastern Wisconsin don't go into late models, because you'd actually be racing less than what you can race now. And that's because IMCA has common rules and they have so many tracks in one area.
Well, let's just take the sport mods, right? You know, just for example, it's already been done where the USRA B mods, IMCA sport mods, and WISSOTA Midwest mods all ran together. And guess what? Highly competitive. Highly competitive. They did it tonight in Bristol. Brock Grunwald got second. I think it was an IMCA guy that won. I'm not positive. So you can do it. So knowing that they're that close already, right? These sanctioning bodies, I'm talking to all of you, Brett Root, Todd Staley, and whoever's in charge of WISSOTA. I'm talking all 3 of you. Put your egos to the frickin' side, sit down, and make the couple necessary changes you need to make them all the same. It ain't that complicated. USRA, if you want to have your American Racer because that's your tire, that's okay, right? IMCA, if you want to stick on the G60, if it's only the tire, that's not a big deal. But make the rest of them the same. It's not complicated. They can do the same thing in the mods. WISSOTA cars have actually won USMPS races. Not that big of a difference. With USMPS and USRA, same thing, right? IMCA mods, they're a little bit down, right? But you can do something to make it work. So for the life of me, I just don't understand. Right? Why they can't put their egos to the side. So I actually got some equipment here last week and to digitize some videos, right? I got old tapes. So if you have old racing tapes and you want them digitized, get them to me. I'll do it because I'm having a blast watching some of these old races. Okay. And I went back and I had Jeff Provenzino's tapes I'm doing right now. In 2002, I watched the 2002 Tony Stewart night at the Cedar Lake Speedway. Now, I think it was only like $3,000 a win for late models, But so that means that modifieds could not have been, there's no way they were more than 1,500. My guess is the modifieds must have been 1,000 to win. Bert, this is a mid-week show. How many WISSOTA modifieds do you think were at the Cedar Lake Speedway for probably 1,000 to win?
50.
80. 80. 80. Yeah, there ain't 80 modifieds at any race anymore. 80 modifieds. It was incredible. There were some heavily talented drivers there. I watched it. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. I like watched it. I got into it. I'm like, this is good stuff. And I look back at the same year. He had the 2002 WISSOTA 100 tape, right? I mean, the car counts were unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. And the crowds, though, Bert, I'm here to tell you, if there's a ton of cars, a lot of them have people following them, especially back then. There was no live streaming, right? So if they wanted to watch their drivers race, they went to these end of the year specials. The grandstands at the WISSOTA 100 at Cedar Lake in 02 was elbows to assholes. It was completely jam-packed all the way around the racetrack. I'm like, I remember those days. That was unbelievable. I watched on Dirt Race Central last year the legendary 100, same weekend, same event, non-sanctioned, and it was empty. Nobody there. Low car counts, no fans. Horrible, right? And the only difference was WISSOTA at the time, and I don't care what sanctioning body. Everybody's got their favorite. I don't care. You pick. But it was all unified. It was unified. Racing was stronger when it was unified. So the person who sent in this question, you're dead on right. If everything's more unified, not competing, not 7 sets of rules, not all this stuff, racing is better. And I truly believe, Bert, and you can tell me your thoughts. I think that if you're a promoter, if you run a track, if you run a series, you love racing. That's why you're doing it. You know, you're not becoming a millionaire promoting racing. I promise you, that ain't happening. Okay, so get back to why you're a promoter in the first place. You love racing, right? And if you know that unifying everything is going to be better for the sport, why aren't we doing it? Why? Makes no sense to me.
Because there's egos involved. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was 2002, but I remember one of the WISSOTA 100s that I went to. It was probably around that time. There were 82 late models there. I mean, 82 late models for a WISSOTA show, and I mean that year, there was double-digit cars from Eastern Wisconsin there. So I mean, when you can get 10 to 12 Eastern cars, plus you get all of the central, the Western Wisconsin and Eastern Minnesota cars, and then, you pull some from the Dakotas, you're going to get more cars and you're going to get more fans to go there to watch them. So yeah, I agree with you on that aspect.
So here's my thoughts. Rod Lindquist, somebody cut this clip out, get it to Rod Lindquist, the interim executive director for WISSOTA. I have a challenge for you, sir. For the WISSOTA banquet next year, get back to having the little trade show expo they had before that. And I challenge you to call Mike from the Tri-State Series. Call Jason from the Dirt King Series, okay? And then you sit down with your rules people, do this beforehand. And even if this happens beforehand, that'd be great. But the three of them, imagine if those three got together. There might still be 3 series, but let's make it so that the rules at those 3 series are the same, okay? Because now you might see them Eastern Wisconsin guys. Nick Anvelink, he's raced a lot of WISSOTA shows, even over recent years. He went to Menominee and stuff. And with some of the big stuff coming up, like the Maiden Memorial, big paying show, all that stuff, why not make it so that they can kind of intermarriage, right? It'd be better for everybody. Get together, put your egos to the side, and let's make this happen. And if it happens at one class at a time, that's okay. That doesn't have to be all the classes overnight, right? Like Santa's not going to come down the chimney and make that happen. It's just not going to happen. But you got to start somewhere. Start with the lates, Go to the mods. We're the only ones that have super stocks. Go to Midwest Mods, make them all the same. Stock cars, you can make them the same. It's not that complicated. It is time to make that happen. So, Bert, let's jump on to the next segment. The next segment, of course, is Who's Hot. Go ahead. I know you got some more. I like it. What do you got, Bert?
Well, I want to ask your opinion. How much of do you think this won't happen is because each sanctioning body requires that every rim, every part be stamped with their, IMCA rim has to have an IMCA sticker on it or whatever. I mean, how much is that going to stop unifying the organizations?
This is
because doesn't that involve money?
Well, this is very simple. And again, common sense, extremely uncommon. I don't even know why they call it common sense, because it's not. Everybody knows that there's a part shortage. Last year, Bassett Wheels struggled to get wheels out, right? It was a bad deal. So knowing that, we already know that the IMCA wheel and the WISSOTA wheel are exactly the same wheel with a different stamp on it. We already know that. So at the end of the day, they're not making that a rule for safety. That's where it started, because there was lightweight wheels that were breaking, and that's how that wheel rule came to pass, because they were trying to get rid of some of them lightweight stuff that was breaking. That ain't the case anymore. They're the same wheel. So with a part shortage that we're in, myself, if I was the head of WISSOTA, if somebody had 2 IMCA wheels on that were stamped and stickered, I'd be like, you're good. Same wheel. You got to get rid of that sticker program. I don't care what kind of money it brings in. If it brings in $2-3 grand or whatever, I don't care. I don't care. It's stupid. It's stupid. It's bad for racing. If they're on the same wheel, get rid of that dumb rule, right? So that's a part of it right there. You're exactly right. I don't think USRA has. I don't think they have stamped wheels. I think that's IMCA and WISSOTA, and that's just nonsense, right? So they're the same part. It makes no sense, and that's a whole nother story. We could go for the next time talking about this wheel deal. It's absolutely dumb. People getting disqualified for this, it's dumb. But you're exactly right. That is a part of it, and that's the ego thing, right? That's like, well, it's our money. It's our. Who cares? We're doing this sport because we love racing. That's why we're doing it. Maybe it's time to show that, right? Instead of put your ego to the side, don't worry about your pocketbook. We're in this sport because we love racing. Put up or shut up and prove it. That's what I say to that. So with that said, off my soapbox here for a minute. Who's hot, who's not? Brought to you by Blue Line Brews. And I saw something online the other day that says, you could replace coffee with tea, but then you'd probably, get rid of that little happiness moment of your day. So you can't do that. So if you're a coffee drinker, you know what I mean, right? So if you're a coffee drinker, why not support Blue Line Brews? Go to bluelinebrews.com. Bert, a portion of their proceeds goes to families of fallen officers, families of injured officers. They got lots of different blends. They got the K-Cups. And just support. You want to support the groups that support the people that we care about. And I know the racing community, they support the thin blue line. They do. It is what it is, right? So why not support Blue Line Brews? Check them out online. Order yourself some coffee. And I challenge you to jump online and say, hey, which one did you get? Post a picture. In fact, I'll do this. If you do it, if you post a picture on the One to Go Show Facebook page of you holding your Blue Line Brews coffee, right? If you post a picture, I will personally send you a pair of race tickets to a regular night at any event that you want. So there's a challenge for you. Order some coffee from Blue Line Brews. So, Bert, who do you have? Who's hot?
The Cali sprint car drivers.
Man, you pissed me off. God, I copied that. The copy. All right, okay. So, yeah, you're exactly right. 3 for 3 so far out there, right? What do we got? Giovanni Scelzi, Kyle Larson, Carson Macedo. So you're right on. The question is, can they keep rolling? Can they keep doing it?
Yes.
You picked Brad Sweet. I incidentally picked David Gravel to get her done this week. So, I had that, but I had a backup plan because you always do this to me, right? And this is going to kind of tie in with everything else. But I'm going to go with Devin Moran. He's on the podium.
I had him written down too.
Yeah, he's on the podium every night. He's got 8 seconds, including this past weekend again. Devin Moran just looking very strong. Incidentally, his brother was at this last event with him. He said that definitely helped. But Devin Moran is red hot, and I keep an eye on him this weekend. Who's not?
I don't have anybody written down, but I will go with Brad Sweet again, just because he still doesn't have a victory. He got a second, but he doesn't have a victory.
I'm going to go with Donnie Schatz. So we're sticking with the sprint car deal. He started night number 1 with a win on that rodeo track at Volusia, and it was impressive. He got up on the wheel, got it done, got back by Kyle Larson. But since opening night, a 7th, 6th, 5th, 8th, in his last 3 shows, Bert, 12th, 24th, and 20th, including a rollover. So in 8 shows, 1 win. That's his only podium, and his only other top 5 was a 5th. So Donnie Schatz, when he started out with that win to begin the year, we're like, he's right back where he finished off last year, because he was the hottest driver in the world of outlaw sprint cars the second half of the season, most consistently in the top 5. But boy, he's got some work to do. He's got some work to do. So I hope he gets her done this weekend. I'd like to see Schatz back right up front where he belongs. So that's what we got on who's hot, who's not. And let's talk about our sure bets, right? We always have a sure bet, a lock of the week. And our lock of the week brought to you by, right, J. Schmidt Real Estate over in Watertown, South Dakota. If you need land, commercial, residential real estate, Jay's been in business for over 20 years. Big racing family over in Watertown, South Dakota. And, again, support those who support the sport. His dad still races, right? His son still races. Jay had a couple bad wrecks in there, so he's just a car owner now. But support those who support us. My lock of the week, J. Schmidt Real Estate. Bert, who do you have?
Well, I feel like I'm at the casino and I just can't win a game. I can't win a hand. And you can't stop, though, because you know that once you stop, then you're what you would have picked will win. So I'm going to quadruple down and say Brad Sweet is going to win in Cali this week. This is like the 3rd week that I've said that.
So if you're close to Brad Sweet and you watch the show or listen, it's Bert Lehman, Lehman. So fire him all the hate mail. He's clearly jinxing Brad Sweet. Okay, this is Bert's fault. Brad Sweet, if you're a Brad Sweet fan, family, friend, whatever, that's Bert right there. He's messing up your season. I'm going to go with Devin Moran, and Devin Moran is going to get 2nd at Bristol. That's what I'm going to go with. He ain't going to win. He's going to get another 2nd. I don't know if they get both races in. Looks a little sketchy for weather one night, but he will get at least 1 second this week at Bristol. Devin Moran looking to be the bridesmaid of the year. So, Bert, let's jump into the last lap, brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines. Of course, Frank building winning engines for a very long time. And I know he's got some drivers. Justin Bogle, he got screwed, Bert, at Bristol tonight in the preliminary feature. He was in the top 3. He flat out got dumped, and he got put to the back, and he drove back up into 5th with a Zuli's Race Engine on a big half mile. So if that tells you anything, and so keep an eye on him. Go ahead.
What number is he? Was he number 10?
Yep, yellow and black, number 10.
Okay.
Yeah, he got dumped. It drove right through his left rear. But Frank also, I know they have Aaron Blacklance and Darren Lawler are going to be taking their Midwest mods or B mods. They're going to be racing down at Humboldt this weekend as well. So Zuli's Race Engines, get a hold of them. The season is getting closer. If you need your stuff freshened, you need a new mill, get on the list, because if you can't beat them, join them. Zuli's Race Engines. So speaking of Bristol, like I said, Vogel got screwed over there. Cody Lee was there. Brock Grunwald had a great run opening night, rounded out the night 2nd in the B mods over there. So tip of the cap to him. And we got some drivers heading down to Humboldt, lots of them. But little news on the late model realm, and I didn't have this on your notes here, Bert. So Derek Vessel and Harry Hansen, both of them going to be making the switch this year. Brand new MB customs in the late models up in Wissota country. KME, Pat Capella, the primary sponsor for those two, making the switch to MBs. So pretty interesting. And it sounds like Danny Vang, who had a lethal car, going to finish out this year. I heard a rumor he might be getting a brand new MB in the modified too. So I think maybe that relationship is pretty strong between Harry, Pat, and the Mars boys down there. But a couple brand new MBs coming up to the Northland. It'll be interesting to see that. That's 16. He's been quick, Bert. He's been over the last couple, 2-3 years here. He's been the most consistently fast late model at Grand Rapids, Superior, Hibbing, and Proctor. Like, he's top 3, top 4 every night, multiple track championships. And he did it in the Capital. Nothing against the Capital. I think they got a good car, but I'm thinking that if you get out of a Capital and you get into MB, which they're the dominant car in the area, is his results going to get better or worse or stay the same?
I mean, it could be any one of those three, but
I'm asking you to pick. Come on.
I will say they will get better.
I think so too. I'm telling you, them MBs are tough to beat in Wissota country. They just are. I mean, if you're a driver that doesn't have a lot of experience with 4 bars and all that, which he does and his dad does, right? MB's got a big notebook up here. I mean, they win a lot of races throughout Wissota country. So it'll be interesting to see what them cars can do this year. So we talked about it briefly. The Bristol Dirt Nationals going on this week, Bert. So they race tonight, which is Tuesday, and then they race Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the first 3 nights is prelim nights for the support classes. Friday and Saturday is going to be the super late model events and the main events, right? And then next week, they bring in a new group of support classes, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and the same deal Friday and Saturday. So car counts, Bert, horrible. So last year, I'll tell everybody the car counts here tonight. 28 hobby stocks, 41 stock cars, 28 sport mods, 22 IMCA style modifieds. Bert, 7 602 crates. 7. Did you hear me right? 7. Not 70, not 17, not 27, 7, right? Now, I looked at that, right? And I'm like, what the hell? So I got to think, everything's promoted. Everything. Last year, rolling into Bristol, I would honestly say that was the best promoted race that I have seen in years. He started promoting it's Bristol, baby, Dirt on Bristol for months ahead of time, right? I mean, heavily promoted. I mean, and did a great job. They had a ton of cars, right? This year, all that other stuff going on in XR, I didn't really see much promoting for Bristol. Did you?
No, I mean, there definitely isn't the buzz this year that there was last year. And I agree with you in the fact that leading up to it, you really didn't see much on, I think last year, they would post a picture of a driver's car and say Bristol bound. And I don't remember seeing any of that this year. I know looking at the lineups tonight, I mean, there's only a handful of drivers from up in my area of Wisconsin, where last year it was at least double what's down there now this year. And I don't know. I mean, last year they tried to cram everything into 1 week, and the stock car drivers got screwed over last year because they only had one. They were supposed to have 2 nights to be able to qualify for the big show. And because of the weather, which the promoter has no control over. So, I can't blame the promoter on that. The stock cars only got the race 1 night to try to secure a spot for the feature. So but now that it's spread out, and now, I mean, they're scheduled to race 3 nights. So, I mean, they're going to hit the track a lot more.
For free, though, right?
Well, yeah.
So this, just so everybody knows, the support classes here, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at Bristol, you don't get paid. So you're racing heat and feature 3 nights during a tire shortage, right? See, everything costs more, and you got to race 3 nights for free before you get paid at the main event. That is bullshit. So that is terrible. As a race car driver, there is no way that I would go to an event like that. Absolutely not. There's just no way, right? But so part of it, right, is that the drivers are like, we ain't freaking going down there racing for free for 3 nights. We can't even get tires. Soda guys can't even get tires. Hoosier Tire North does not have tires yet, so they cannot get them, right? So that's a big problem right there. Then you add in the fuel costs that are stupid, right? And the just overall cost. I talked to my brother who works at Rad Wire and Supply in Hibbing. It's $125 for a 4x10 sheet of aluminum. That's almost double of what it was, right? I mean, it's just stupid, right? So the cost of everything going up, racing for free, and a lack of promoting, right? That's the result you're going to get.
And I think there's two other factors. One is the novelty is not there anymore. I mean, last year it's like, okay, we're racing at Bristol, and a lot of drivers went just so they could say they raced at Bristol, and they raced at Bristol, and they don't, with the cost of fuel and everything, they don't need to go back again this year. And I think another factor could be, after last year's event, they saw the carnage that can take place on that track. And with the cost of everything, I mean, how many cars were, I mean, not just damaged, I mean, they were destroyed last year.
Right.
So it's like, do I want to risk destroying my car there just so I can say that I raced at Bristol? Some will, but obviously not as many as last year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Because the 4 cars that I would say are kind of my area cars that are there, Josh Smith, Cody Lee, Brock Grunwald, and Justin Vogel, they weren't there last year. So this is their first time. Now, Trevor Anderson is coming back down next week. So he's going to be one of the guys that's going back-to-back years. So that's all. There's all them factors. But the lack of promoting, I think that's what you get. I mean, the grandstands, and I get it. It's the support classes on a Tuesday, right? But there was nobody in the grandstands. Nobody, right?
Well, I mean, actually watching it, I was thinking to myself, are the grandstands even open?
Right. I mean, it was bad. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe not. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But I mean, there was nobody there. Now, with that said, they race for free tonight, tomorrow, and the next night. So they don't need to have any fans because they're going to make all their money on their back gate, and the few fans they got, the sponsors and all that, they're going to come out just fine because they ain't paying anybody, right? So it'll be plenty profitable for the show. But I just look at that and I'm like, you want to go there for the atmosphere, but when the atmosphere is empty, it's like, I don't know. I was kind of contemplating going. I looked at it and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't go. There's like nobody there. It's like horrible, right? Now, the late model deal on Friday and Saturday, that is looking like it's going to be good. So, Bert, I got a list in front of me here, right? So here's some of the names, and there might be more. This is just the ones that I know of so far. So this weekend, there's 4, I would call 4 big late model events going on. Of course, the Bristol Dirt Nationals, 250 grand to win shows. That's number 1 on the list. Then it's a toss-up. Who do you put next? You got the Thaw Brawl at Davenport, which is 10 and 20. And then you got the Rock Galt Memorial, the World of Outlaws at Cherokee. And then I'm not sure if you knew this, but Florence has a 10,000 to win show as well this weekend. So they'll get their area cars. I'm guessing Josh Rice probably will stay at Florence because he owns the place, right? So I would have to think he'd probably stay there. But in Bristol, Jimmy Owens, Dale McDowell, Ricky Weiss, JD, Fergie, Overton. This is Brandon Overton. I'm not sure where Cody Overton's going, but Brandon's going there. Devin Moran, Daryl Lanigan, Ashton Winger, Chris Madden, who incidentally, Bert, World of Outlaw point leader is skipping out on the World of Outlaws. He's going to the XR event for 50 grand to win. Kyle Strickler, I believe, is going there, and T-Mac, I believe, is going to Bristol. Davenport, which is the Thaw Brawl. Jimmy Mars, Bobby Pierce, Turbo, Huddy, Heckenast, Alverson, Shirley, Rusty Schlenk, and Shannon Babb, and there's going to be more. And then you get down to Cherokee, okay? Then you got Dennis Erb Jr., who's having a good year. He's off to a really good year. Brandon Shepard, who obviously the favorite to win it all. And then you got Boom Briggs, Josh Richards, the Reaper, Ryan Gustin. I'm assuming Tyler Bruning, Brent Larson, Kyle Hammer, and Tanner English, okay? So looking at that, would you have thought ever that you're kind of a cherry picker if you're going to a World of Outlaw late model race?
Well, the World of Outlaw lineup is pretty weak. I mean, you have to say that. I mean, well, it was the beginning of last year when we debated on the show which driver's list is better, the World of Outlaw or Lucas. And you could kind of make a case. You could make a case for the World of Outlaws. At least you can't even make a case for the Outlaws anymore. I mean, honestly, an outlaw show that's like 10,000 to win, it's from a fan's perspective. Why do you want to pay $25 to $30 to go see? I mean, don't get me wrong, nothing against the drivers that are racing Outlaw Series, but I mean, it just doesn't compare to Lucas or, now the drivers who are just going to travel around the country racing for the money and not follow a series.
No, it's brutal. Where's Chris Madden from?
He's from South Carolina, isn't he?
Yeah. So he's leaving. He's leaving Cherokee, which is one of basically his home track, right? He's leaving there, right, and driving to Bristol. Now, I don't know how to say it, right? So, and I get it. I do get it, because if you're following a series, you get guaranteed tow money and provisionals. That's a big deal for some of these teams. It really is, right? Because some of these drivers, and I'll just say it, Kyle Hammer's a rookie, right? You got Brent Larson, Boom Briggs, who both been kind of struggling to kind of get their way going in the open late model world. There's a certain benefit for them going to Cherokee. Like, we're in the show. We're in. They know they're going there knowing they're getting gas money, and they know they're starting a feature. They already know that. They don't know that at Bristol. They might not make the feature.
Well, and for those drivers, by the fact that the top drivers are not going to be there, that actually helps out those drivers. They're guaranteed to be in the show, and if there's less drivers, they're probably going to finish better.
Yeah, absolutely. So now if you're a competitive guy, right? So let's say I'm going to look at this list here. I'd say Tanner English is probably one of the more competitive guys. Obviously, Dennis Erb Jr. and Brandon Shepard, right? Obviously.
Right.
But I'm talking about somebody who's not been a perennial. Ryan Gustin's kind of showing some speed. I'll use Brent Larson, and I get why he's going, because it's the guaranteed money. I get it. I get why he's going, right? But Cherokee sucks. That place is terrible. I mean, I ain't seen a good race there ever. They start during the day. It's locked down. It's rubbered up every single time. It's terrible racing. Horrible. And I'm not saying Bristol's going to be the best. It's a big half mile. We all know how I feel about that. I think Davenport's probably going to be the best racing of the three as far as racing goes. But looking at that, for me personally, Bert, it would be extremely difficult. I mean, painfully difficult to drive by Bristol paying $50,000 to win, to travel way further to South Carolina for less money on a absolutely garbage racetrack.
Well, and it's not just 50,000 to win one night. It's 50,000 to win two separate nights.
Right. So that's interesting, and that's the downfall to following some of these series is like you're going to drive by some pretty darn good races to go to your series race, sometimes at a worse track. I get it because some of these guys, and that's plain and simple. Some of these guys have to have that security blanket to kind of keep the funding, to keep things going. I get it. I get why they're doing it, but it would not be easy.
But I mean, looking into the future, if I still have questions about this, but if XR can maintain these high payouts and continue that into next season, World of Outlaws is going to have to really look deep and figure out what they're going to do.
World of Outlaws, that's the one, their head is on the chopping block. It is, right? Because Lucas has stepped their game way up. They got a lot of high-paying shows, right? The World of Outlaws stepped up a couple things with some of the tow money and a couple things they did, but the overall product that they're putting out, it wasn't as good last year, and I think it's got worse. With Madden off the series, the point leader, right, saying, I'm out. I'm going XR racing for more money. Wow, that's a statement, because I don't know how many people are even going to follow the series. It'll be interesting. There'll be some good racing to be had, but speaking of some racing here this past week, and should have the driver. You can look online to see who the driver is. There was a Sport Compact Hornet, one of them front-wheel drive 4-cylinders at the Winchester Speedway, Bert, in Virginia. I don't know all the details. I don't know exactly. I've heard different things on safety stuff. I don't know all the details. What I do know is he barrel rolled, tragically lost his life at the racetrack. Terrible dude. You never. I mean, it's one thing when you hear about a racer losing their life, period. That's always a shock to the racing world. But when it happens on the racetrack, that's a tough deal for people in the racing world to stomach. I mean, it's happened, and unfortunately, it probably will happen again. It's a dangerous sport. It is what it is. But thoughts and prayers to everybody involved with the racing community over there. If you knew them, that leads me to this: tracks need to look closer at safety. Okay. I mean, you get up into like the modifieds and late models, they're built by professionals, right? That's what they do. They build race cars. They're professionals. But you get into some of these lower classes, a lot of times people are building them cars themselves. They're like, hey, I'm just going to throw a cage into the shop and go race. They don't know any better, right? So that's what they do. And a lot of times tracks don't even look at it. They just take a peek. Yep, you got a roll cage. You're good, right? But they don't really look at it, right? So again, track promoters, I'm talking to you here. Wilmer is the only place that I remember going to in all my years of racing that if it was your first time there, and I don't think they do it anymore. Maybe, I'm not sure. But I remember I'd go there and they would actually go through your whole car and they had a checklist on safety stuff. Make sure your seat was mounted properly, your seat belts, your window net, which that's a whole nother discussion because I think window nets are dangerous and stupid and they should get rid of them. But they look at things as far as safety goes on your car. And after you pass it, they look at your gloves and your helmet and all that. Then they give you a sticker and now you're certified to race. Okay. I think every track should do that. I've seen these beginner classes, pure stocks, Hornets, where a driver's sitting in the car and the roll cage is like, below their helmet. Like they're sitting up so high and the cage is low. If they roll over, their head sitting in the car is higher than the helmet. I've seen tracks when they caught that saying, you got to go home. We can't have that, right? But it's important to look how the seats are mounted. They need to be mounted to the main structure of the roll cage, okay? And the seat belts too. The seat belts and the seat and everything needs to be mounted to that same structure. And I think that track promoters should just take your tech guy, your safety person, and just look at these cars because all it takes is one time. All it takes is once. And nobody thinks they're going to get hurt. Nobody. But the fact is, it happens. And we just got to be a little bit more proactive on this. And I urge tracks to take a peek, especially at some of these lower class cars where it's not necessarily professionals building them. Look at the cars so we don't have this happen at our tracks. And I think I'll leave it with that. Any thoughts on that, Bert, before we jump to the next topic?
No, I mean, I agree with you. Safety, if you're going to race, safety should be um, at the top of your priority list on things to do. And, you know, like for a Hans device, I've heard some drivers say, well, I can't afford a Hans device and this and that. And it's like, well, if you can't afford it, then you really can't afford to be racing, because that should be something that's required, from a
And then didn't
safety
even come
aspect.
around. It was like my last couple of years of racing where they really started to get popular. And yeah, I mean they anything safety. And as a driver, I mean I've seen drivers at a racetrack with literally torn and duct tape and patched up and
Yep.
greasy racing suits. It's like, what? Like at that point, like why are you even wearing it? It's like, so I mean common sense. And again, we have to protect drivers from themselves, because I was a driver, right? And I wasn't a driver on a huge budget. So when I looked at it, it's like, well, that ain't gonna make me faster. So if I had an extra $500, $1,000, I wasn't gonna buy that safety stuff. I was gonna buy more tires or another shock, something like that. So promoters, that's where they have to come in and just basically lay the groundwork and help the drivers protect themselves from themselves, in no uncertain terms. So the next thing we're going to jump onto here, Bert, the One to Go Show challenge. Okay, this is for drivers. Okay, now I've been saying this: promote, 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 promote. Nobody wants to race in front of an empty grandstand. Right? Can you imagine winning tonight at Bristol, getting out and going, yeah, and like there's nobody there? Like you said, I was kind of wondering if the stands were open. They may not have been. I don't know. It was that empty. That's no fun. We all want more people there. We all need to promote, right? And let's face it, tracks are not promoting. They're just not. They're throwing a post up on Facebook. Come to the races. That's all they do, right? I get it. It sucks. It pisses me off. So we need to do something ourselves, right? The racing community, and I don't care what it is, okay? So if you do something creative, okay, and I'm gonna give you some examples. Put your car in a parade. 4th of July parade, a lot of towns have them. Get your car in the parade. Bring your car to a car show, right? I know that Justin Barsness just had his up at a home show in Grand Rapids. Bring your car to a school. I urge you to do this. Towards the end of the school year, talk to the local school. Bring your car there. Bring it out in front of your sponsor's business and display it. And maybe get a few of your friends to bring their cars too. Do this type of stuff, or simply talk to people every day and say, hey, you ever go to the races? No, never been there. I tell you what, why don't you come with me and check it out? Okay. Do something creative, right? And every time you do something like that, I want you to post it on social media and either tag me, Ryan Eagle, tag Bert Lehman, tag the One to Go Show, shoot us a message, make sure that we get it, right? And we're going to keep track of all the people that are doing this to promote racing, okay? And I think it's going to be around the beginning of August. I was going to wait till the end of August, and if I get more prizes and more interaction, we might do more of it. But we're going to give out some prizes. We're going to give out some awards, and it's going to be cash money stuff that you can use for your racing program. We want to support the racing community, so be sure to get the word out, do your part to promote the sport. Let us know you're doing it. We're going to recognize you for doing so. We're going to put everybody in a hat. We'll let everybody know when the drawing is going to be. We'll draw it out on the show, and we're going to give some stuff away to help promote dirt track racing. So get a hold of me, get a hold of Bert, get a hold of Puka, one of us, and help us help you, right? Kind of like show me the money, help me help you, and that's what we want to do to make racing better. So the picks this past weekend, Bert, Puka is catching you. You're at 29.
Yeah.
He's at 27, and he missed the night.
I know.
I think he's cheating. We're gonna tear him down. Got to be cheating, for sure. Jeff's at 25. I'm at 20. Mike is trying to catch up to us and not working out really good. This weekend, we got a lot of races this weekend. 2 World of Outlaw sprint shows, 2 late model shows at Bristol, 2 late model shows at Cherokee, 2 late model shows at Davenport, and the 15,000 to win USMTS King of America race at Humboldt. So we got 9 races. We could see some movement, Bert.
I haven't scored many points in the last few weeks.
Me neither, but I'm still coming for you. I'm coming.
Maybe it's because I'm picking Brad Sweet all the time.
Yeah, keep on doing that. Keep on doing that. So with all that racing going on this weekend, let's end with this. What are you personally looking forward to most this upcoming weekend?
I am looking forward to Bristol, even though there's a lot of carnage there. I'm looking forward to the late models racing there, though. So, because there's going to be some big hitters there, so I'm really looking forward to that. And just to touch on Bristol losing some of the luster this year. At least I haven't heard of any, but there's no NASCAR drivers scheduled to race this year. Last year you had Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott raced, and Austin Dillon raced in the crate division. So
Logano ran a mod, right? Joey Logano.
Yes, you're right. He did do that. So yeah, I mean, it just does. The novelty is worn off.
I honestly think, and no disrespect to anybody involved, but I think it's just lack of promoting. It's one of those things where if you spread yourself too thin and you don't have enough manpower to do everything at a high level, everything suffers, right? The late model stuff will be good because that's where the bulk of the promoting is gone. And when you put that kind of money on the line, you're going to get the top drivers. And when the top drivers are coming, you don't really have to promote, right? Because people are like, oh, these people are going to be there racing for 50 grand to win. I'll be watching that. So it's sad to see because I think that this event could be good, but I think it just needed to be promoted more.
And one thing that I would like to see, and maybe they will do that this weekend once the late models are there, but I would like to see a reporter in the pits with a microphone. I mean, remember Gateway? That guy was going out onto the track and everything. But like tonight, in one of the stock car features, the kid that Murdy kid who won it last year started mid-pack, worked his way to the front, was leading, and had to pull off the race. It's like, why did he pull off? And if you had a reporter there in the infield, you could have got that answer. And it's not like the drivers are going to get away from you because they have to come into the infield. They can't leave.
Right. Hopefully they do have that for the late models. I don't know. It's just different. Bristol last year was, in the weather kind of screwed some things up or whatever. But I just think it comes down. There's different variables. In all fairness, the fuel prices, the tires, all this type of stuff hurt. But at the end of the day, the better you promote an event, the better that event's going to be. It's just the way it is. I'm looking forward to Humboldt, the USMTS and the B-Mods this weekend. Humboldt, King of America for the USMTS Modifieds and Battle at the Bull Ring for the USRA B-Mods. Second year in a row, Bert. Last year also the B-Mods canceled their original show and they put them together. They have the USRA stock cars there as well. No disrespect to them. That'll actually probably be a really good race. They put on a good show. But the B-Mods and Mods intrigues me because we have a lot of guys from the Wissota country going down there, including the reigning national champion, Tyler Peterson, and the 1TPO. He's going to be making the trip. But it's for the mods, I think it's 3,000, 5,000 the first two nights, 15,000 to win on Saturday. B-Mods is 1,000 and 1,000, then it's 10 grand to win for the B-Mods. And if I was a B-Mod driver as a racer, I'm like, I love it. Hell yeah. As a purist of the sports, I'm like a B-Mod racing for 10 grand. Oh, that's just bad things happen. But it is what it is. It'll be a good show. Lots of Wissota drivers heading down. Good luck to all the drivers coming down from our area in Humboldt. Go down and kick the shit out of them USRA guys. I would absolutely love to see that. So I'm kind of jacked up to see that. Lots of late model racing. I'll be catching all of it, just like you. We'll have to make sure to watch the sprint cars. No disrespect to Keith. We love you, man. But when there's that much late model racing and mod racing going on, we'll probably catch the features. But Humboldt, that last week, the last show they did down at that Rocket Raceway Park in Texas, the USMTS modified racing was incredible. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. Drivers coming from deep, lots of passing. I expect more of the same this weekend. So, Bert, that's episode 121 in the books. And tell you what, always fun talking racing. Lots of it coming up this weekend. Stay tuned. We'll have a lot to talk about. Drivers, don't forget about our challenge. Keep us posted. And we'll be back next week. I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.